There's the 1%, the 0.01% with their Trump towers and their blasphemy laws, their supersized yachts and private jets, their armies and spies. They own newspapers. They decide what gets taught in schools. They own the money we use, but they kindly allow us to borrow it. They've invested rather a lot in fossil fuels, so we'll be continuing to emit massive amounts of carbon dioxide for the foreseeable future. The power elite, the ruling class, entrenched in their vast and forbidding citadel, their fortress built on privilege and other people's labour, their great castle protected by barbed wire and helicopter gunships, but with just one minor structural flaw, which is that the front door is wide open. Alright, let's come back to that in a minute. I want to talk about something else first. There's a picture you might have seen from an old punk zine. There's a diagram of a guitar chord, and next to it the words, "Here's a chord." You know what I mean? Anyone? Ignorant. Well, yeah, it's an old punk zine. And it was really right. So there's a diagram of a guitar chord. It's probably like cut out of a library book or something. It's pasted there, and the words, "Here's a chord." And then another diagram, another guitar chord. Here's another. One more. Here's a third. Now start a band. And it works. Stuff like that, and the Sex Pistols, like that energy, that people started bands. People who couldn't play instruments, saw shit like that, picked up their instruments, played them anyway. That created a movement which fit into this procession of countercultures. Punk was obviously to an extent a reaction against the hippies. The hippies were a blossoming of the Beats. The Beats in turn had their own roots. After punk you had the rave scene, which was sort of partly a synthesis of those punk and hippie energies. And then after rave, well, not so much. Obviously, in these past couple of decades, there have been all sorts of interesting, progressive, rebellious individuals and groups. There have been bubbles of counterculture, but we haven't really had a cohesive, unifying movement. It's been a long time since there was a real sense of an underground threatening to turn the world upside down. Why? Hunter S. Thompson was asked that in the late 90s. Someone asked him, why weren't the kids in America rebelling? Okay, they were personal, they were local acts of subversion. Why wasn't that adding up to a collective, focused attitude of rebellion? And Hunter S. Thompson said it's because the dark side of America is in control now. So that's a vision of counterculture as having been neutralised, having bought and sold, co-opted, corrupted. But maybe that isn't actually the case. Here's a chord, here's another, here's a third, start a band. Alright, so you grab a guitar and make jingly jangly noises. One of your mates goes bang, 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 bang on the drums. Someone else can sing or scream or shout into a microphone. And for a while that is revolutionary. You're not consuming culture, you're creating culture. You're not idolising some distant superstar, you're your own superstar. You're challenging authority in your lyrics and your stance, you're connecting with others who all think the same, so you all get together and make jingly jangly noises. Subcultures are formed around the arts, mostly around music. And although music as music would always be powerful and relevant and important, maybe as a tool for provoking social and political change, it has its limits. We can raise the consciousness of everyone whose consciousness can be raised. We can spread the message. But, having done that, all artists can then do is find new ways to repeat the message to each other. So maybe, without quite realising it, we've just lived through the peak and subsequent decline of counterculture. And at the same time, we've witnessed what I think will be seen as the historic failure of the left. In the first half of the 20th century, communism was a spectre haunting the world. Society shook, governments fell, there were revolutions, and the revolutions were shit. Marx understood economics, but he didn't understand power. He didn't understand that a dictatorship of the proletariat would function as a dictatorship full stop. And elsewhere the revolutions failed. Anyway, America and France in particular, around 1968, were in a condition of basically civil war. And one side won and the other side lost. It's obvious really. Revolution is defining the state as an enemy and challenging it to a fight, but then as per the rules of dueling, they get to choose the weapons. Post-1968, the left has mostly degenerated into expressions of protest, and the authorities are fine with that. They'll help organise marches against themselves. You go on a big demonstration and you can feel like you're doing something, you're standing up to power, you're confronting power, but what you really are on a protest march is you're some people saying some words in the street, that is all. But yeah, go along, let off steam, shout at some buildings, maybe scuffle with the cops, then hurry home to sign another bloody petition, and unwind, listen to some songs that are like really powerfully, passionately slagging off those authorities who are ever more entrenched in their position. Thatcher said in the 80s, there's no such thing as society. And that is where we're at. We live in a society whose architects do not believe in society. Greed is good. The yuppies won. And a yuppie victory, it's mean, it's dull, it's dispiriting, it's stagnant, and nothing has worked against them, and things are getting worse. So, what if we took democracy at its word? Participatory democracy has been a progressive force at points throughout history. Maybe that engine's got some juice left in it. Whereas, revolutionary politics. Okay, so you've done it, you've overthrown the state. Well done you, yeah. Then there's that post-revolutionary phase, which tends to be a bit grim, but alright, you navigate your way through that. And then, in this future world, or this escapist fantasy utopia world, the day-to-day politics there are basically identical to the day-to-day politics here. Up and down this street, there are all these properties. The people in them, they turn their taps, they need water to come out. They expect that water to be safe, clean, drinkable, for it to descend into some sort of sewage system. They take the rubbish out to the street. That rubbish has to be collected. That street can have issues with potholes, litter, accidents. Okay, so what's your strategy for dealing with accidents? Okay, maybe traffic lights, zebra crossings, speed cameras even. Or like, even in a post-capitalist society, there's still going to be the question of the allocation of resources. Maybe you should put these things here, you can't then put them there. That's the same problem. Of course, over here there's the schools, there's the hospital. Fuck, it's boring! It just goes on and on and on. You have your moments, right? Your scandals, your causes and clashes and controversies. But most politics is endless fucking boring meetings about fucking boring things which just happen to be fundamentally necessary to our civilization. Exactly a decade ago, I had this idea. I thought I'd try and create a new political party. I thought there was something inherently energising and progressive in that idea. Start a political party, and try and take it seriously, kind of stand in elections. I thought I was committed to doing that, but that tedium, the weight of that fucking tedium, boring fucking meeting politics, it just crushed me. Couldn't do it, I fucked up and did other stuff instead. But that is why the right wing wins. That is why they're winning, because the right wing has a higher tolerance, the authoritarian mind has a higher tolerance for boredom than we do. Most people, okay, you've got a choice. You can spend tonight studying a 1,000 fucking page document relating to where to put streetlights, and then someone else, they've read the same 1,000 pages, they come to a slightly different conclusion, so you've got to debate the matter with them. Or you can swallow a pill and go dance in a fucking forest, you get stone and fantasize about being a Jedi Knight. Some people thrive on the boring stuff, and by involving themselves with that low-level minor politics, naturally they're going to end up dealing with the higher, the more important politics. And why shouldn't they? Because conversely, if we don't, if we can't, if we won't involve ourselves with the world as it is, as we find it, why should we then necessarily expect to deserve to get the chance to involve ourselves with the world as we would prefer it to be? About a year ago, just over a year ago, I got invited to a meeting with the Green Party. I wasn't massively interested. Like I said, I had this idea that political parties are the McDonald's and Burger King of democracy. Everyone should be their own political party. And even though I had tried that and abjectly failed at that, still I figured that's the way it should be. But I went along to this Green Party meeting, and to an extent it was the same fucking boring meeting stuff. You know, your agenda, your minutes, your apologies for absence, your treasurer's report, your blah, 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 blah. But I liked the group, I didn't disagree with their policies, so I sort of suffered through the boring bits. I ended up standing as a candidate in these May elections just gone, so that's the local elections, not the parliamentary ones. I live in Southend, which is quite a big town, but I can't speak definitively about London or about the major cities. But I imagine, though, that Southend is sort of a microcosm. And there, the smaller political parties, which are still very large as cultural entities. You know, everyone's heard of the Green Party, everyone's heard of UKIP, most people have probably heard of the Liberal Democrats. These parties have this constant, ongoing need for people to represent them. So Southend, for instance, is divided into 17 wards, and there's an election most years. So pretty much every year, every party is looking for 17 people to stand for them. The bigger parties, alright, they've got would-be career politicians queuing up to join them, but the smaller parties don't. They are desperate for people. It doesn't cost anything to stand in a local election. You have to fill in zillions of forms, you have to collect signatures from people who live in the area. That's quite interesting. And the people who live, so the people in the political party, they'll have election agents who can help with that. And if you stand as a candidate, I would say it opens a number of very interesting doors, both for you as an individual looking for new challenges, new routes to explore, also as someone looking to represent and to advance some sort of political agenda, and also from an artistic point of view. So for instance, the first thing I did as a candidate in my ward, I designed a leaflet. That's 2 sides of A4 to post through a few thousand letterboxes. My leaflet turned out to be sort of relatively controversial, but one plan to do a future one, because obviously the Green Party opposes the bullshit war on drugs. So what I want to do is design a leaflet that will have a picture of a cannabis leaf on and some text related to that, which again will go through thousands of letterboxes, which is potentially more subversive than anything you could currently do in any art gallery or music scene. Because okay, in those places you might be confronted with wild, shocking ideas, but you're in an environment where the wild, the shocking is expected, it's encouraged, it's therefore banal. Whereas treating people's letterboxes, their doormats, as your venue is some whole other thing. And of course you can go further. I didn't do it this time around, but I think it's something to build up to. But right, none of us would just sort of wake up one day and think, okay, I'm going to go knock on some random door. And I'm just going to like, some complete stranger opens it, and I'll just be like, hey, let's talk about politics. But if you pin a fucking rosette there, you can do that. The person who opens the door, they might want you to sod right off. They might be happy to see you because they agree with everything you have to say, or they might be happy to see you because they disagree with everything you have to say. They fucking want you to know it. You have to construct a politician persona capable of improvising through anything that might come up. That is a performance. If we see ourselves as being any sort of artist, we have to believe we are communicators and we have something worth communicating, and then our dimensions to that we haven't begun to explore. Something I have been doing, and I was quite cynical about it at first, I figured the sort of people who vote in local elections and the sort of people who read the local paper, so I just started getting that and writing endless letters to them just to get my name out there. But I got really into doing this. Obviously, a daily newspaper, it's got like all different articles about all things in the area that you haven't really known about before or thought about before. So you have to sort of constantly formulate your thoughts on these different issues. And then try to express them in a very condensed but also very incisive way. That's kind of satisfying as well, because it's not just the people who vote in local elections who'll be reading this, but also the people who stand in them. So if some local politician says or does something very stupid, and if you find a very biting way to call them out on that, it's quite a nice feeling looking at that printed on the page and knowing that, unlike if you knocked up a poem or a song, the person who's done this would actually be reading it. Another thing is that if in the lead up to an election, if a group, a residents association or whatever, if they call a meeting of all a public meeting of all the candidates, then yeah, you're all invited. So there's that level playing field. So I had this back in April, I think it was. I'd never done anything like it. There was a bunch of us sat at a table. There was the Labour candidate, me with the Greens, the Independent, the Tory, the UKIP. We had to give speeches, we had to answer questions. There wasn't like a massive turnout, but there were residents from the ward, there were representatives from most of the parties, there was the politics editor from the paper. It was intense. Right, I could go on that line, but, the 1%. The power elite, the ruling class. Alright, whatever we do, we're not going to be fucking politely debating face to face with them anytime soon. We're not going to be writing nice little letters for them to read. If they can crush armies, if they can infiltrate would-be armies to stop them forming in the first place, if they can get Johnny Rotten doing adverts, then surely there is nothing we could do within mere politics that would actually change anything. Right, let me give you 2 brief examples where I don't think that's necessarily wholly the case. In 1969, the age at which you could vote was lowered from 21 to 18. But who were the first political party to argue for that and to put that in their manifesto? Anyone? Fuck me, again you have disgraced yourself with your yeah, lower the age of voting from 21 to 18. It was the Monster Raving Loony Party. So they were called something different then, but it was the same group of people. So obviously there wasn't this direct causal link. The Monster Raving Loony Party says this, therefore this happens. But there is such a thing as the zeitgeist. The Monster Raving Loony Party, they used the political process to amplify their voice, and in doing that, they helped shape, helped form this 1969 youth culture zeitgeist which fed back into the political process. More recently, who ever actually wanted a referendum on Europe? It was only UKIP. Only UKIP. And what UKIP didn't do was they didn't marginalise themselves. They didn't locate the establishment as over there, something they were oppressed by, something they were disenfranchised from. They didn't howl from the fringes with banners and placards about how much they wanted their referendum. No. They got as close as they could to the establishment. They got as close as they could to where power resides, to where decisions are made, and in doing that they got what they wanted. Ultimately, the future of British politics, one way or another, it's us, it's all of us. And I would say that one route from where we are now, one route to a better future, a better politics, a better Britain, is if we could try and invest in the political process as it is. Some fraction of the energy that we all currently give to watching fucking superhero movies and writing poems about what rebels and renegades we supposedly are. Because otherwise, if the interesting people stay away from politics, politics can only get even more boring. If the smart, arty, passionate people abandon the political mainstream, the mainstream will just be crass, passionless and uninspired. Thank you.